Hello and welcome to Mary's Nutrition Show, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington. Now, here's your host, Registered Dietitian Nutritionist, Mary Purdy.
Hey everybody, Mary Purdy here, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington, where I'm still wearing wool and wool socks and long underwear in May. Seattle. I'd like to introduce videographer, producer, and yes, my husband, Keith Hitchcock.
Hello, I'm right over here behind the camera.
He's right there. And I would also like to introduce our newest cast member. And by cast member, I mean literal guest member. Yes, I had minor surgery to repair a torn ligament last week. I am doing just fine, but I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that this will be making an appearance. And I'm trying to work with turning adversity into opportunity. So please welcome cast member. Thank you.
Does your cast member have a name?
Julie.
Oh, Julie. Hi, Julie. Nice to meet you.
Very happy to be here. Yay.
What are we talking about today?
Well, today we are talking about the hot topic of sugar, which is on the top of many people's minds because they either are eating way too much of it and are trying to figure out how to stop craving it, or they're trying to reduce it, or they're just wanting more of it. So it's probably something that you, if you are a typical American, are getting much more of in your diet than is optimal for your health. So we will be talking about 5 different points around sugar. And you're going to want to stick around because in point number 4, I'm actually going to be talking about types of sweetness that also are sources of iron. Very exciting.
Theme music. Bow, bow, winnie, bow, bow, wow, 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 wow.
Just to let you know, please consult your doctor if you are choosing to take any recommendations from today's show. Additionally, please make sure that you know that the opinions expressed on the show are those exclusively of Mary Purdy, that's me, and the show's producer, that's him, and do not reflect any policies or beliefs of Arivale, Dietitians in Integrative and Functional Medicine, or Bastyr. Okay.
Hey, if you're watching live, thanks for joining us.
Yay.
Feel free to, at any point, join in the chat, the live chat there. Ask questions at will. Just know that we may not be able to answer those questions until the Q&A section that is going on later on. By the way, if the live chat is not working for you, it seems that you need to have register for a channel, a YouTube channel, before you're able to do that. So there you go. Mary.
Yes.
On the note of Q&A.
Okay.
Last week,
yes,
some questions came up. We talked about fat last week.
We did.
And you actually talked about some good fats to put in your diet.
It was controversial.
It was highly
Very controversial.
Very controversial.
But anything that's worth talking about is controversial. We know that.
There was a tweet storm about
tweet storm
about your fat episode.
Stop it.
Your big fat episode. So you talked about pistachios.
Yes.
And nuts in general. Mm-hmm. So a question from Emancipation Fitness.
Okay.
They ask, what about raw versus roasted nuts?
Yes, that's such a good question because I think some people only prefer nuts in their roasted form, and many companies put out products that are roasted nuts. Now, when nuts are roasted with really, really high heats, that actually damages some of those beneficial fatty acids that are in nuts. So I love to recommend having either raw nuts, and if you don't digest those very well, then it's good to actually soak them because that can help break down something around the nut called phytates. You don't have to memorize that, but it can help. Or roast them your own on a very, very low heat, like 150 or up to 200 tops, but for a longer period of time. So instead of roasting at like 350 or 400, where you're going to damage some of those healthy fats, roast low temperature for more like an hour.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
And thanks for that question.
Yes, thank you, Emancipation Fitness.
What's the main topic today?
As I mentioned, it is sugar.
Let's dive in.
Let's just dive in. Point number 1 with sugar. Point number 1. Point number 1 is the implications of how sugar, and I'm talking about refined sugar, not like a plum or a peach, but refined sugar, the white table sugar that you have, as well as refined carbohydrates that are in cookies, cakes, refined flours, crackers, things like that. What happens is that those sugars break down very, very quickly in your body and bloodstream, and your blood sugar goes up. And when your blood sugar goes up, there's a hormone called insulin, which comes in and helps to bring the blood sugars out of your blood and into your cells, where your cells can use them for energy. But when there's a constant supply of those sugars, your insulin can also be up for lengthy periods of time. And when you have high levels of insulin going on for long periods of time, your body actually becomes less sensitive to insulin. It doesn't respond as well to it, and that can lead to something called insulin resistance. Therefore, your body is going, I don't recognize this anymore, and the body does not function as well. This can have implications for your future health and put you at risk for things like diabetes, cardiovascular or heart disease, even things like cognitive decline, and then overall inflammatory issues. So sugar in high amounts really can be detrimental to your health, and it's great to begin to cut back in any way that you possibly can, because it is in everything, and it's pretty probable that we are all getting more than is necessary.
It's amazing. I read the ingredients on the packages, and like how often are they like sugar, the very first ingredient, the second ingredient, or in some form. I'm going to want to ask at some point, if not now, later, about the different words that we call it,
Yes, very true. And remember, sugar is very heavy. That's why it's often the first ingredient, because when labels are created, the first ingredient is always the heaviest ingredient in that label. And it's in things, it's what's it called? Camouflaged in words like evaporated cane juice or organic cane sugar. Those are all sources of sugar.
Oh, that's so disappointing, Mary.
I know. And remember, it's not, sugar isn't evil. It's just that in excessive amounts, it really can be problematic. Now, point number 2, that leads me to point number 2, which is, some people will say, well, if sugar is so bad for me, then I should probably just start having artificial or non-nutritive sweeteners. And to that I say, not necessarily. So non-nutritive sweeteners or artificial sweeteners, things like Splenda and Equal and saccharin or aspartame, these are all things that also have negative health impacts and just have not been studied for long enough periods of time, especially in humans, to really understand the negative impacts or the neutral impacts. There's been some strong research to show that there are implications around how these actually have an impact on your appetite and can increase your appetite, can have an impact on your gut microbiome, or those bacteria, those good bacteria that sit around in your gut and have all different kinds of helpful functions, as well as potentially having an impact on what's known as blood sugar regulation, which can lead to metabolic syndrome, or a constellation of factors like high BMI or overweight, hypertension, high blood pressure, high blood sugars, high what do they call it, lipids or cholesterol. And so there is a correlation between a high intake of artificial sweeteners and metabolic syndrome. So they really are no better. And in terms of weight loss, the research is, it's tepid at best. And really, if we're talking about how much sugar versus how much artificial sweetener, remember, a teaspoon of sugar, I'm going to pick this up with my little lame left hand. A teaspoon of sugar has about 5 grams of sugar, and that's about 20 calories. So if you're looking to have a little bit of sweetness in your diet, if you're having artificial sweeteners, you're really only cutting back by about 20 calories. So I say stick with something more natural, and we'll talk more about those shortly.
I'm excited.
Are you?
Let's move on to point 3.
Okay, all right, point number 3. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. So this brings me to my point about those 5 grams of sugar found in this teaspoon of sugar. Many people think, well, how much sugar am I allowed to have? How much sugar should I have? Or what should I not go beyond? Now, obviously, most people cannot have 0 sugar in their diet because sugar is in everything. And very often, people like to have a little treat. And that should be okay, to have a cookie or a scone or have a little sugar in your tea or coffee. However, what I would recommend, and what's been recommended by some very, very reputable organizations like the American Heart Association and the World Health Organization, is absolutely no more than about 5 to 10% of your daily calories, and I would go even lower than that. So the maximum amount, really, if we're looking at around a 2,000 calorie diet, should be no more than 40 grams of sugar a day. And the World Health Organization actually recommends for optimal health no more than 25 grams of sugar a day. So that is 5 of these teaspoons. 1 teaspoon equals 5 grams. 25 grams would be 5 teaspoons worth of sugar. Now look at a label on a typical yogurt or on a typical muffin or a scone or a cookie at Starbucks, and very often you will see 30 grams of sugar, 50 grams of sugar, 75 grams of sugar, depending on how large that cookie is. A soda has 39 grams of sugar in it, and that sugar is specifically high fructose corn syrup, which has also been implicated in high blood pressure and numerous other issues with the body and metabolism. So I would stick to absolutely no more than 25 grams of sugar a day if possible, and less if you're able to.
I'm just wondering if Julie has anything to say about that.
She does. She's actually going to be helpful in the next section in point number 4. Yes.
Well, let's move right on.
Shall we?
Yes.
Okay. Well, point number 4 is about, I should bring up my little, thank you for the sound effects. Point number 4. Point number 4 is about natural sweetness. And I love talking about this because I love sweets. I crave sweet things, and we all do, right?
Oh, I do.
Of course you do.
I love
it's
sweet things.
Natural.
Oh, yeah.
We were raised on breast milk, which actually is naturally sweet. So it's very human. Yes, indeed.
I didn't know that.
I know. It's very human to want to have a little sweet something, and we should be able to have a little sweet something as long as it's not in excess. So one thing that I like to recommend are, Julie? Yes, Julie is holding right here a source of natural sweetness, which is a date. Yes, dates, wonderful natural source of sweet, but also a good rich source of fiber and potassium. So you aren't just getting a flood of sugar, you're getting some beneficial nutrients as well. And I should mention that these dates are also a source of iron in the diet. Yeah, so that can be an added benefit. Same thing, apricots, dried apricots, wonderful source of sweetness, especially when paired with those roasted nuts that I was just talking about. You've got a nice little combination of some fat, some protein, and some sweet, and that really takes that sweet craving away. But there's so many other natural sources of sweetness, even things like a banana, or things like, if you have an extra $19, some goji berries. Anything that has natural sweetness, whether it's fruit, frozen, dried, what are those puffed ones that are found in Trader Joe's and things like that, those kinds of things are wonderful to include. And if you're looking to bake something on your own, then it's great to use more natural sweeteners. Maple syrup, or honey, or, yes, I'm going to get bold on you, molasses. Also, surprise, a source of iron.
Ooh.
Yes, great for gingerbread or gingerbread cookies. Instead of using sugar, you can use molasses. So sweet does not necessarily have to mean white table sugar. It can mean combining natural sources of sweetness, whether they're fruits or these natural sweeteners or dried fruits, and pair them with things like cocoa powder, so you've got that chocolate hit. Pair them with things like vanilla. This is your dear, dear friend in the battle against the sugar craving. Those really, really help. And even things like really high quality chocolates. I'm going to call out Theo's Chocolate, which is actually a place here in Seattle. They make really high quality chocolate that tastes so good that you only need a little teeny weeny bit. And if we look on the back of this label, if I can read, the total amount of sugar for a half a bar is 13 grams of sugar. Now, a half a bar is a lot. I would mention that you can probably eat a fifth of a bar, so you're getting maybe about 4 to 5 grams of sugar in that serving, which is really not much, especially if we're working with those World Health Organization recommendations. So get natural sweetness in your diet. Test it out. I know some people think like, ugh, an apple, that's not like having a chocolate chip cookie. Well, then create something that feels like that same experience, but make your chocolate chip cookie with oats and walnuts and dates and maple syrup and vanilla and cinnamon, and you might have a different experience than if you were to just munch on a Keebler's cookie.
So true, so true. And you're making me hungry with all those suggestions.
I'm so glad.
You know, I put things in bowls. I eat yogurt and I put sweet things in there, like dried fruit and bananas and nuts and why not a little bit of chocolate? You know, that's
why not?
You know, because I have my refined sugar allotment for the month or the week, the day, whatever.
And if you just have the chocolate, chances are you're going to crave more. But if you have a sweet treat that also has some fiber and some protein and some healthy fats, you probably won't eat as much sugar because you're getting satiation from these other nutrients that you're eating. So it can even be something as simple as like avocado chocolate pudding, or I thought of another one shortly ago, and now it's completely flopped out of my head. But even making a crisp with apples and berries and having a lovely oatmeal topping as well, with just a hint of maple syrup and salt and cinnamon, can be really wonderful.
Mary, on a wholly unrelated topic,
Yes.
Chat is wanting you to free Julie's nose.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought that was me. I thought that was her mouth, but she is now free, and I'm only holding her up because I can't put my arm down. So I'm not trying to necessarily make her the star of the show. I just literally can't put my arm down. Otherwise, it starts to throb a little bit. That's the personal information about my situation here, but I'm just being real here. So.
0.5?
There you go. 0.5. Thank you for keeping me on track, Pete. Point number 5. Well, I actually started talking about this when I mentioned that fantastic spice, cinnamon. So one of the great things that you can do if you are somebody who craves sugar is to start introducing new spices, herbs, and flavors into your diet. So cinnamon is just one fabulous spice to include. It could be cardamom. It could be just different flavors in general, which can be savory, like parsley or mint or spearmint or licorice or oregano. Anything to help your taste buds shift into a new direction. One thing I love recommending is something that is spicy. And this is a secret spice mix made by Thad and Abby. If you're out there, thank you very much for giving us this fabulous mixture. Because when you have something that's super spicy, it is so stimulating to your taste buds that it is very hard to want to go back for seconds of that sweetness. And it gives you an extra little kick up of flavor in your entire, both sensory and is it auditory? What's the thing that happens in your nose when you can smell things and taste things?
Oh.
Olfactory. Yeah. So you didn't know that you were actually giving me a hint. Oh, and I was like, olfactory. Yes. Olfactory.
It is just about time for that Q&A section here.
Oh, all right.
So if there are questions out there, get them ready. Go ahead and put them in chat right now if you have them. And I actually have a question in the meantime.
Wonderful.
Which is, sometimes I meet those people who, are very anti-sugar, and they've maybe listened to a nutritionist like you, but they've stopped eating fruit.
Yes, yeah.
Is that fruit? Is fruit bad?
I hear that all the time. People start thinking, oh, well, I have blood sugar issues, I should stop eating fruit. Well, you should stop eating an entire watermelon or a smoothie made with orange juice and 6 bananas and pineapple. That is too much fruit. But having a few pieces of fruit during the day is absolutely fine, because fruit is so rich with so many other nutrients. And it's not just sugar. It has fiber and phytochemicals or antioxidants in it that help to balance out any additional sugar that is found naturally in fruit. And same thing with vegetables. There are lots of sweet vegetables: beets, carrots, even onions. Yes, I said onions. They are sweet, especially if you cook them or roast them or saute them or caramelize them. They create a sweet flavor. So those are also not going to be high in sugar. There's so many people who are like, I can't have beets, I'm going to get diabetes. Believe me, no one's getting diabetes from eating beets, I promise you. So keep the juices more low, but when it comes to beets and carrots, if you can mix those with another vegetable, if you want to have a juice of sorts, it's really not going to be that high in sugar. Look on your labels, you can see there's not that much sugar content in even a beet juice or carrot juice.
2 questions from Paul.
Oh, Paul, hey.
One, can you let the puppet breathe again, please?
Sorry.
And what about kombucha? Can he go to town or just too much sugar?
Well, I think different brands of kombucha are going to have different amounts of sugar. Now, remember, sugar is used with kombucha, and kombucha, for those of you who don't know, is a fermented beverage that is actually based on a tea and a bacteria that utilizes sugar to feed itself. So there has to be some sugar in kombucha because it is essentially the food on which the bacteria of the kombucha lives. But what does bacteria do? It eats the sugar. So there shouldn't be too much left and there shouldn't be too much added to the kombucha. So look on your label and you can see a lot of kombuchas have maybe 3 grams of sugar, which is not very much.
Susan, thank you for your question. We are over time, so look in the chat sometime in the next few days, and we will get to your question, which is a very good one. But moving right along, weekly challenge.
Oh yes, the weekly challenge, if you choose to accept it, is to reduce/eliminate sugar, refined sugar, not berries, for 1, 2, or yes, up to 1 week or 1 weekend. Take it out, see how you feel, have a date, maybe have a date, maybe that's like your natural human sweetness, you know what I'm saying? And then have an apricot and choose more natural sources of sweetness, and of course try and shift your palate away from those typical cravings that you have by having different flavors.
Okay.
Have a radish, for God's sake.
We will be checking in with you next week to see how the weekly challenge went.
Yes,
how
indeed.
did you do? Did you go 3 days, 4 days? Did you go all 7 days without refined sugar? Can you do it?
And if you do it, let us know how it's going and what strategies you use to keep going.
Yeah, drop a comment in the comments below the video. That'd be really fun to see.
Yeah.
So, thank you for tuning in. If you appreciated the show today, you can help us out by subscribing to the Mary Purdy YouTube channel. Again, drop comments in the in the comment section down there. Let us know what nutrition-related topic you want to hear about, and let us know how you're doing with the challenge. So thank you, Mary. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for all your questions and comments out there in the chat land.
Thank you, Keith.
So fun.
For being so brilliant behind the camera.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you. And you'll definitely want to join us next week.
Yes, for sure. We will be talking about antioxidants and how they can help prevent disease, cancer, and a variety of other things that you hope you never get.
Sounds good. I'll be tuning in.
I'll be tuning in too, and I might be eating some antioxidants in between now and then.
See you next week.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.